This is Bob Sansevier. I'm here with special guest Tim Yoder from Fox Sports North and Pioneer Press Deputy Sports Center, John Plume. Now, this was going to be draft week. It has become draft week and lockout, no lockout week. Now, Tim, the teams have been telling players, they're letting them in. Buffalo didn't they were turning a few aside, but teams for the most part are letting players in the facility, but they've been instructed by the league not to let them work out until they sort a few things out. How do you see this thing playing out? I mean, it's going to be appealed.
I think it's going to be one of these things. Every day is going to bring something new for the next couple of days, and maybe we can find something out before the draft actually starts Thursday night. But at this point, I think it's going to be one appeal after another, and we're going to be left to wonder, is it going to be solved before the draft? And I highly doubt it. I think this could drag out a few more weeks.
Now, John, that's the key thing, because what will the league do? Wouldn't it behoove them? How do you like that word, behoove? Wouldn't it behoove the league to actually allow teams to make trades involving players for the draft, because it makes the draft a lot more interesting if you're actually trading players and not just picks?
Well, I think it's going to matter what the owners want, and the owners are going to stick together on this thing. I mean, if you have one owner who goes off half-cocked, decides, hey, I want to trade players for picks in the draft, but the other 31 are, wait a minute, we're in this together, we're not going to trade players, we're not going to have workouts, we're not going to have mini camps, we want this thing settled before we do anything, and you would think that's going to be their point of view going forward in this thing. They don't want any NFL business done until they have a new collective bargaining agreement.
Well, let's say they move forward like that, and I agree. I mean, this thing is going to drag on for months, because once it gets to the appeal process, it goes before 3 judges, and I think the league, they were anticipating it, and it also appears they were looking forward to, in some respects, to a Court of Appeals that has, 13 of the 16 members were Republican appointed, which generally is I think business and corporations see that as a good thing, even though they only go before 3 of them. Now, Tim, I'm sure you've followed the draft closely and what the Vikings might do. When do you see them taking that quarterback? First round, second round?
Well, if they stay at number 12, I think that if Blaine Gabbert, Cam Newton aren't there, which they're expected to be in the top 10, I think their best move is to trade down. And then maybe they can trade back up into the end of the first round and get a guy that might interest them. Might be a Jake Locker or somebody like that, a Christian Ponder.
Do you see Locker lasting till the end of the first round?
I think if he's there at 25, Seattle grabs him. So they'd probably have to move up somewhere between 20 and 24 to get a guy like Jake Locker.
See, I'd be surprised if he lasted that long. Now, John, you had him taking Prince Harry, right? The quarterback?
Yeah, that's it.
And are you still sticking with that?
No,
maybe you should give him the guy's full name.
Prince Amu Kamara.
Very
if you look at this at this division, you've got the reigning Super Bowl champions. Arguably, they have the best wide receivers in the NFC, maybe even in the entire NFL. The Vikings are very weak at the cornerback position. You've got Cedric Griffin coming off 2 ACL surgeries. You've got Chris Cook, 2 meniscus surgeries. Antoine Winfield's going to be 34. It makes perfect sense for this team to take a physical cover corner who can cover down the field and still be physical at the line of scrimmage. So I really like Amu Kamara. Another guy I like is Anthony Costanzo, the offensive tackle from Boston College. He's the best tackle in this draft. The Vikings certainly have issues at the tackle positions. You got McKinney, who's had plantar fasciitis the past 2 seasons. Phil Lodeholt, whose best blocking technique seems to be grab the face mask and pull the guy down. So they certainly have issues there. And then at defensive tackle, they could use a guy there, and you might look for a Corey Liggett from Illinois. I like him. He's a 320-pound guy. He's tough. So he could fit there too. So those are 2 guys. As far as the quarterback now, I don't see them taking a quarterback until maybe the 4th round. And a couple guys to keep an eye on are Stanzi from Iowa and Nate Enderle from Idaho. Enderle's been gaining a lot of steam in the past couple days. He's a really good quarterback, 44 touchdowns the past 2 seasons, so he's another guy to keep an eye on.
Now, Tim, one of the local kid, Adam Weber, do you see him being drafted? And if not, I would be shocked if he didn't sign with the Vikings, because if you're a free agent quarterback, what team would be better suited than this one?
Yeah, there's not going to be a better option for him if he isn't drafted. I think he's got the potential to be a 7th-round pick. I think as teams look at that, they see, okay, quarterback, you got to have one, you got to develop one. Obviously, Weber's a few years away before he's ever going to do anything. And really, that's my issue with drafting a quarterback at number 12 overall. I don't think any of these guys are ready to go right now. I think they're at least a year in some cases, 2 years in other cases. If you're talking about a guy like a Colin Kaepernick, who I really like his physical skills out of Nevada, I just don't think he's a guy that's going to be ready, though. And so I think that's where it makes sense. If they can get to free agency, sign a veteran, whether it's Donovan McNabb, somebody else, sign a guy that can give them a year or two at that position while they develop somebody. And I think that's one of the mistakes they made when they had Tavares Jackson. They threw him in there right away, wanted him to be the guy at the end of his rookie season, and he was overwhelmed.
Well, who's the guy? Now, I happen to think of the quarterbacks that Locker is the guy who can step in, and I think he'll have the best career of any of the quarterbacks. But who's the guy each of you think that teams are going to be slapping their heads and saying, why didn't we take him when we had the chance at number 10, number 20, second round? A guy that's going to be in that mid to late first round, maybe even into the third round, and he just wows and blows people away.
Adam Weber. Just kidding.
I'll tell you what, one thing about Weber, though, poor coaching, I think, up and through.
Yeah.
He actually could turn out not a great. He could surprise people and teams by making a practice squad and maybe becoming a backup or developing, because he really was put behind the 8 ball dealing with Brewster those years.
Yeah, he's not going to be a Tom Brady. The guy I like two.
Nobody said he's going to be a Tom Brady.
I like two of these guys. I really like Andy Dalton. He's won at every level. He went 13-0 last year with TCU. He's incredibly smart. He makes all the right reads. Again, he's a shotgun quarterback. So like Tim said, I think he's probably going to be a year and a half to get used to being under center, to grasp everything there is in an NFL offense. But a guy who might be ready to play right now is Christian Ponder from Florida State. He played in a pro-style offense with the Seminoles. He put up some really good numbers. He's smart. I think he could probably grasp an NFL offense right out. He's had some shoulder issues. He had a surgery.
Well, a shoulder quarterback, you don't really need a shoulder.
Yeah, you don't really need the shoulder, but he looked really good at the Senior Bowl. He had a great combine. I mean, he's a guy that probably could come in right away. And everybody needs to keep in mind, when you have an Adrian Peterson in the backfield, that takes a lot of pressure off a rookie quarterback. And he could be this year's Joe Flacco or
except
Matt Ryan.
Everybody knows the guy's running. So
they know he's running, but it takes a lot of heat off a rookie quarterback to know you got 28 behind you who's going to get you probably 100, 120 a game.
How about you, Tim? And it doesn't have to be a quarterback, just the guy that is going to shock people by just how good he is.
Well, if you want to talk quarterback, I think it's Kaepernick. I just love this guy's physical rifle arm. Talked to him down at the Senior Bowl. Good kid. Seems like he really wants to prove people wrong. And I think he's a guy that could surprise people sliding up into the end of that first round. He might be a second-round pick, but I think he's got the potential in 3 years from now to be a really strong quarterback.
I'll tell you one reason I like Kaepernick, because there's some aged writers in town. I want to hear him say the name and spell it, because that might take some doing.
I want to hear him say Amu Kamara.
I can't even say it. Amu Kamara. Prince Harry.
Prince Harry.
All right, well, Tim and John, I got a feeling that we'll know more on Thursday and Friday and as the draft goes through the weekend here. Thank you, gentlemen.